Baby climbs into his mother's coffin, and what he did next left everyone in tears. A mother in a coffin is called by her little baby. The people looked at that scene so tender and macabre at the same time, completely astonished. The tears, the expectation, and the amazement of seeing what that little one was doing formed the atmosphere of that pitiful and sad burial. The little one began to get so restless in his grandmother's arms that she quickly passed him to his father, who, upon taking him, could feel how the child's body trembled as if he had a fever. Somehow that little creature could realize what was happening. He could feel the pain of everyone there, and perhaps he himself felt the same sorrow as all those who witnessed the burial. Jeff watched as his little one turned his whole body towards the coffin where his mother's remains rested. "Look at the baby. He's looking for his mother. Look how he's looking for her," said the people who witnessed that sad moment. The child searching for his loved one was doing everything possible to get closer to the coffin. Jeff, no longer able to contain the baby, approached where the wife he loved so much was lying cold and motionless. He hesitated for a moment at the thought of placing his little baby in front of his mother's motionless body. The closer the man came to the coffin, the more restless the child became. But how had it all happened? How is it possible that such a young woman, so robust and full of life, was now about to be buried? Everyone in the room had known the story of these young people. Jeff Walker, rich and aristocratic, was the son of the largest landowners in the region. They owned thousands of acres of land and hundreds of thousands of head of cattle. His family were the wealthiest rangers in all of Texas. She, a descendant of Mexican parents, was of unparalleled beauty. Since she was a child, she had been raised by her grandmother, who, very diligent and hardworking, had made Matilda a woman that any man would want to marry. From childhood, those two souls were destined for each other. But that great difference in background and family roots meant that from the beginning, the relationship was seen with bad eyes, and no one ever thought it would work out. But love is always a stubborn bed to go against the current. And then Jeff's family, in their effort to keep him away from that woman who in their eyes was simple and unattractive, sent a young man to study abroad. There, his parents told themselves that the young man would get to know other life, would fall in love and forget what they thought was a youthful whim. Time passed, and that love was kept alive thanks to the incessant written letters that never stopped coming and going. Time in its relentless march finally passed, and Jeff finished his studies, and unlike what his parents expected, he remained single and didn't doubt an instant what his next destination would be: his hometown. The arrival of the Walker heir was quite an event in that region. The young people, now of age, got married, and to avoid the uncomfortable disapproval of their parents, decided to move to the capital of the country. There, a few months later, their first child was born, a beautiful boy they named Ben. Not long after, Jeff's parents sought out the couple and asked them to forgive them for not being as supportive as they deserved. They also moved to the capital with the intention of being closer to their grandson and accompanying Matilda in the child's upbringing. Everything was going on in the most harmonious way between the young mother, the little boy, and her in-laws, until one day when suddenly, while preparing the baby to be placed in his crib, Matilda suddenly fainted, losing consciousness completely. The young woman was rushed to the hospital, but to no avail. The efforts and everything doctors did on Matilda's body, she surrendered to death. The diagnosis was a sudden and massive loss of pressure that had caused her fatal outcome. The funeral arrangements were made, and there was that pitiful scene: a young, full-of-life father holding his 1.5-year-old baby boy, who grew more and more agitated as his father brought him closer to the coffin of his recently deceased mother. Jeff asked for the casket lid to be opened to allow little Ben to see his mom one last time. As the coffin lid was removed, the little boy jumped with excitement and stretched out his soft little hands towards his mother and called out to her in a tender, childlike way. Everyone heard the tender sob coming out of that innocent little mouth. Jeff's eyes watered as he looked at the image of his little son calling out to his deceased mother. The man began to remove the baby from the front of his mother's body when he noticed a faint, soft moan coming from his wife's body. He moved a little closer, and with great difficulty noticed a faint and very faint breath coming from his wife's nose. The news spread like wildfire. Matilda had been declared dead in the hospital, and suddenly, due to the whimpers and calls of her little baby, she had returned from the very gates of death. The investigation that immediately followed made everything completely clear, but Tilda's in-laws had planned her murder. Taking a pretext to spend time with their grandson, they looked for the precise opportunity to slip her powerful sleeping pills into her drink that would cause her death. Somehow, Matilda's body had fallen into such a deep sleep that the doctors considered she'd died, and after some time had passed in the calls that little one made to her, Matilda had regular gained consciousness, and in that way,